Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're back with another interview. This time we're going to be talking with Molly Laverty. She's the Environmental, Social, and Governance Senior Manager at Monte Foods Incorporated. Monte Foods is one of the largest food packaging companies in the United States, and is working to become a sustainable provider of fruits and vegetables through investments in regenerative farming and recyclable and compostable packaging. We're going to discuss their goals, which include using 25% recycled plastic in packaging. Today, their plastic packaging represents only 4% of the total weight of all packaging. The rest is made up of paper, metal, and glass. And by 2030, Del Monte is working to make 100% of its plastic packaging recyclable, reusable, or compostable. Del Monte is also entering regenerative farming, introducing the use of cover crops to prevent erosion and restore nitrogen and other nutrients in the soil between food crops at its partner farms. The company is also working to breed non-GMO seeds that are drought resistant and reduce the need for pesticides. They've banned the use of pesticides on their partner farms when pollinators are present to improve biodiversity in the soil and farmland. And they've also made progress on many other environmental, social, and governance issues, including diversity in the senior executive ranks, surpassing the 50% level for participation by women and people of color for the first time in 2021. So there's a lot to talk about here. You can learn more about Del Monte Foods at delmontefoods.com. Del Monte Foods is all one word, no dashes, no spaces. Welcome to the show, Molly. How are you today?
Thanks, Mitch, for that great setup. I'm doing great. I'm so excited for this podcast conversation today.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. So first off, can I ask you to take us up to a 50,000-foot view of what you think the future of human food production is going to look like? What are the prospects for revolutionizing agriculture in response to climate change?
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, the regenerative agriculture movement is something that I've personally found to be inspiring. Just the way we're rethinking how we grow and produce food to feed a growing global population in the face of changing climate and social adversity. The regenerative techniques we're seeing embrace traditional farming knowledge, the knowledge that our growers, have had for generations, and also provide benefits for the farm's entire ecosystem. So this includes, the land, but also the farmers and their communities. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I think will be really important in the future of farming is the automation that we're seeing to play a big role in the future of farming. Innovation pushing into farm technology, like in ways that we've never seen before. And a lot of these innovations will have great potential to reduce carbon emissions as well.
So can you give us an example of an automation that would also reduce carbon emissions?
One example of technology we've seen that has the potential to reduce carbon emissions would be the use of drones on farms. We're seeing the use of drones with infrared technology able to pinpoint specific nutrient deficiencies on farms. This is allowing farmers to really pinpoint where they need to apply certain inputs to their farms. Rather than applying something to an entire farm, they're able to pinpoint exactly where something needs to go and reduce overall farm inputs.
So how is Del Monte dealing with the growing impact of climate change on those farmers? And is it adjusting production processes and distribution to lower its own environmental impact?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, I want to spend just a second talking about how Del Monte interacts with growers. We contract with roughly 700 growers across North America. These are family farms, many of whom are second, third, even fourth generation growers. Some of these farms have been growing with us for over 60 years. So the partnership with the farmers that are growing for Del Monte is really strong. We have less than 2% grower turnover year over year, which we attribute in part to the investment we make in supporting growers with farming technology and advice. But it's important to note that we don't own any farms. So we're really reliant on these relationships with growers to adapt to climate change and shifting environmental patterns. So they're a really important tool, these relationships, to make our business more resilient while also having a positive impact on the planet. As climate change is shifting environmental patterns, we're working to make our business more resilient. We'll see that weather patterns and events have had and will continue to have an impact on the agricultural sector. I was talking with some growers earlier this week just about, even going back to 1980 and the eruption of Mount St. Helens wreaked havoc on our fruit and vegetable production in central Washington. So the key to dealing with unpredictable weather is to invest in the resilience of a farm, giving crops the best chance to survive. So I'd say our work in seed breeding to develop resilient crops is a great example of how we're helping provide tools for growers to adapt to a changing climate.
So have your farmers experienced crop loss due to extreme weather already? Are you starting to see the impact of the drought in the West, for instance, in production capacity?
I would say, like any agricultural company, we definitely see the effects of changing climate, throughout our supply chain. We don't anticipate any drought-related impacts on our supply this year, but we're actively taking steps to reduce our water usage and do our part to help during the challenging times, especially in California.
So let's talk about your carbon footprint. Del Monte's Scope 1, that's their immediate direct carbon footprint, jumped by about 48% between 2019 and 20, and then fell back by 7% from 2020 to 2021. And your water usage declined by almost half over the past 3 years. Are these persistent trends that are the result of changes you're making in the organization, or is it the result of the drought in the West and the pandemic?
Yeah, so we've reduced Scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon emissions through a combination of energy efficiency measures. One example is consolidating facilities, upgrading technology to make our production footprint more efficient. We also source renewable energy. We have renewable energy installations on our one site in California. We completed a full Scope 3 carbon inventory for Del Monte, which gives us a much better idea of emissions from our indirect operations, such as the growing and harvesting of crops. So some reductions that we saw were definitely spurred by the pandemic. One example would be employee travel, which obviously declined dramatically. But through that, we learned that we can work really efficiently remotely with a lot of remote employees and a hybrid return to office structure. So while travel will start to resume, we foresee maintaining a lot of the reductions that we saw through the pandemic.
Well, your Scope 3 emissions, you reported an 88% decrease in 2021, and that's a remarkable change. Is that something, is simply beginning to count Scope 3 a way to wake people up to all the different ways that an organization can save?
I definitely think so. I mean, agricultural companies like ours have, enormous Scope 3 footprints, and I've seen that across the food and ag sector. I think starting to count Scope 3, which can be complicated and confusing, is a really important way for organizations and consumers to understand the full scope of, the carbon impact of the products that they consume. It's not just the energy and natural gas that's consumed in the production of our products, but it's the energy that goes into growing crops and reducing food loss, and everything else associated with the upstream and downstream supply chains.
So let's also turn to your use of pesticides, which you've reduced by 96% over the past 30 years. The 2021 Del Monte Sustainability Report suggests that you use no pesticides, and this is a quote, when pollinators are present. I was confused by that. Can you explain, aren't pollinators always present on a farm?
Yeah, so pollinators are an integral part of our farms, but they're not always present on a farm. For example, avoiding pollinators would be a number one priority for any grower of ours because they're critical to the development of the crop, and the growers depend on their health.
Sure.
There's times the pollinators aren't present on farms when there's nothing to pollinate. For example, when crops aren't flowering, or another example would be bees or creatures of routine. They return to their hives at dark. They don't travel to the fields when there's nothing to pollinate. So relying on this knowledge, really studying when pollinators are going to be on a farm is one tool. But then we also have an agricultural services team that does physical, visual inspections before any application of a pesticide. So they're going to the farm to make sure, that everything, all the assumptions and knowledge that we're using to avoid spraying when pollinators are present. We're also conducting a visual inspection before any pesticides are applied.
Okay, so to reiterate that, so I'm sure I'm clear, and I know that bee hives are often brought to the field during the pollination season and then taken away and placed somewhere else where bees can do their thing. So you would only use the pesticides after the pollination season and when the fruit has appeared on the vegetable.
Yeah, exactly. So no time when there's any flowering present. Green beans are an example that don't really rely on bees specifically. So they're not bringing hives in for the green bean pollination. But, for other crops, they are. So zucchini was an example that I was talking about this week with our ag team, where they he said, I could remember maybe one time in the last 30 years we've ever had to even apply pesticides through spraying. They rely on varietals and timing and other integrated pest management techniques before they even have to get to pesticides, which is, an important part of how we support our growers. Is that application of pesticides is one tool, but it's the last tool in our chest of options of how to manage pests on farms.
So let's also turn to food waste reduction. You've donated a lot of food, but I was also interested to see that you're beginning to repurpose various what used to be waste within the production process, beans, pineapple juice, unused syrups, to create new products. And how much food waste can you imagine eliminating simply by thinking of new ways of using what was available that used to be treated as waste? Is there 40% of lost food that we could recover and make useful again?
Yeah, this is something I love talking about because it's a great opportunity for companies like Del Monte to really reduce our climate impact. We see that avoiding food waste is one of the most important things that we can do for the climate. We have a cross-functional task force that meets at Del Monte and is just looking at every single food waste stream we have, from our peach pits to small pieces of green beans to the syrups that some of our products are packed in, the juices that our pineapple comes in from the Philippines. So we're just testing ways of how we can repurpose previously unused items. So we were able to come out with 2 new green bean lines that were certified by the Upcycled Food Association. And we are looking just at every waste stream that comes out of our facilities. A lot of time and energy went into growing these crops. So, and they're, delicious and nutritious. So there's no reason why if we're able to capture them and repurpose them, that they can't, become new products through upcycling.
I have to ask, what can you do with a peach pit?
Well, there's a whole beauty industry that loves peach and apricot pits. And then there's also, ways to use those that wouldn't be upcycling, but to generate energy through either biodigesters to, use those for energy to power our plants.
Now, I think the next question that follows logically from thinking about reducing waste is you're also looking at new types of farms, such as beginning to use indoor cultivation, vertical farming for beans to get more yield from less water. Is that the kind of innovation that Del Monte is looking towards in the second half of the century, when temperatures may be well above the 1.5 degrees centigrade over pre-industrial level?
Yeah, we're really excited, about the future of farming. And like I mentioned, we partner really closely with our growers, and we're really lucky to have innovative partners that are exploring cool technologies on their farms. We don't, indoor farming for the scale of Del Monte, we feel like isn't quite at the scope that would allow us to continue operations, but we're always exploring technology that would allow our growers to produce more quality food with fewer inputs in a responsible way. So I would have to say we're definitely open to any and all ideas, and are really supportive of our growers who are pursuing sustainable farming.
Well, one of the ways that we can reduce our food-related carbon footprint is by growing closer to the markets where it's consumed. It- you said that you can't imagine vertical farming at scale matching what you do in the fields, but could you imagine using vertical farming to augment production in specific regions?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in the second half of the century, anything and anything, everything is possible. What we're doing right now, specifically regionally, is sourcing from growers who are regionally close to our production facilities. For example, we have two facilities in Wisconsin that process only green beans, and the green beans are
Mhm.
coming from Wisconsin. As a cannery, that's one of the advantages that we have is that we're able to source and can food regionally close to our facilities. So each facility is producing something specific to the region where it is. So Wisconsin's green beans, California's fruit and tomatoes,
Mhm.
Washington is corn and pears and apples.
So another element of how you are working to reduce the food waste and improve the profitability of your business is the CropTrak program, which enables a transparency around the growing and processing of food. And you track this food from field to shelf, as far as I can tell. What are you expecting in terms of introducing additional transparency for consumers so they can understand where their food comes from and how much energy, CO2, and other impacts are associated with what they consume?
Yeah, so for anyone who's unfamiliar, CropTrak is a software tool that provides granular real-time data about each of our crops. So from nutrient availability to planting and harvest dates. We're pursuing transparency across our value chain because it enables us to better understand how all our systems are functioning and where improvements can be made. We've, internally, we've always known where all of our food was grown, but it was housed in paper files at our regional offices and, managed by our ag team in the field. But what technology like CropTrak allows us to do is aggregate all of this data into comprehensive reports in minutes. So we're able to now take a barcode on a can of green beans and map that back to the specific field where it was grown. So we really see the potential for this to allow us to provide more comprehensive information to consumers who really want to know where their food is coming from. I think,
Mhm.
another important tool that or another important metric that CropTrak will allow us to measure, and this is in collaboration with the Stewardship Index for Specialty Crops, which is a nonprofit organization really dedicated to measuring sustainability metrics in the ag space. They're developing a calculator with CropTrak where growers will be able to calculate sustainability impacts of their on-farm practices. So they have water metrics and greenhouse gas metrics and food loss metrics, which then aggregators like Del Monte would be able to collect a more accurate picture of our whole supply chain based on the practices of our individual growers. We'll be able to rank growers by their metrics, share best practices across our grower network, and compile and tell the story of our farming to consumers who really want to know where their food is coming from and what agricultural practices are being used and what the impact on the planet is, the food that they consume.
So, do you imagine Del Monte launching an app that you use to scan, or do organizations or grocers start to tap into this system in order to do the storytelling at retail that consumers are interested in receiving?
Yeah, I think that would be so cool. Either way, I think the ultimate goal is that consumers want to know what's going on with their food. So, as many tools as we can provide them to really understand the impact. There's so much good that's being done in the supply chain that we need to tell the story of that consumers would appreciate knowing about how their food's grown and produced.
So, how can our listeners tap into the story of Del Monte Foods and follow your progress, as well as your progress on environmental goals?
Yeah, so we publish sustainability reports biannually, but we're always updating our website and our corporate social media channels with our sustainability news. So definitely follow along. We're really focused on the ESG space, and we're really excited for the future of sustainability at Del Monte.
Well, thank you, Molly. I appreciate you taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Mitch.
We've been talking with Molly Laverty. She's the Environmental, Social, and Governance Senior Manager at Monte Foods Incorporated. I hope you'll take a few minutes to learn where your food comes from. Not just your food, but everything you buy, because the impact of those Scope 3 emissions and the Scope 2 emissions that we were talking about, of transporting and moving things around the world, in addition to processing and preparing that all of those things, is important to understanding our personal environmental impact. And while it's not on us to do all of the changes, it is important that consumers make decisions that send signals back into the economy about what they value. And if we value the planet, we need transparency and we need information about what we do and its impact on that planet. So folks, check out Del Monte, check out everything you buy and ask for more information. Sounds like they're getting ready to deliver it, and we hope that you'll keep putting the pressure on them to do so. This is Earth 911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.